Hi Roadrunners, this is Sharon Dentlinger, Superintendent of I-35. We've had a lot of information over the last 2 weeks about the state of COVID, not only in the state of Iowa, but in our district. And so we wanted to make sure you were updated on what's happening in the school, explain a few of the terms and concepts, and also give you updates based on the governor's proclamation from last night. So first I wanted to start just by going through the numbers. And as you know, everything we're doing this year is to keep our students and staff safe. I'm happy to report that currently our isolation rate, meaning students or staff that have tested positive, is 1.1% of our population. When you compare that to our counties, which are at 18 or 19%, that's really, really positive for our district and our students. Not that we want to see anyone sick, but when our positivity rate is a 1.1%, the mitigation strategies that we have in place are working. We also wanted to talk a little bit about what the difference is in the numbers as far as requesting a waiver to go to remote learning. And I think that that's a challenge for districts right now. Everyone wants to keep kids in school. We want to keep them here. We want to keep them safe. Having said that, I think it's important to note that the guidance from the state says that if 15% of your county has a positive, or 15% positivity rate exists in the county and 10% absenteeism in the district, then the school can apply for a waiver. What that waiver does is it allows a school to have up to 2 weeks of remote learning approved. The challenge is that the absenteeism number that the state uses is only the number of students who are sick or the students that are tested positive for COVID. It does not include any of the students that are quarantined. And so while we have a significant number of students quarantined at this time, they are not actually sick and they are learning remotely. So when we talk about should we issue a waiver, should we apply for a waiver, should we go to remote learning, that's really based on the number of students that we have that are ill in the district. And that number, or that process that we're going to use for that, is fluid. The first step in that process would be go to a hybrid model. And a hybrid model, our number one priority is, again, to keep kids, students, staff safe. Our primary target with our hybrid model is to keep our K-4 students in the building as long as possible, for as many hours in a day as possible. The second step is to have our 5 through 12 students on a rotation so that over a 2-week period, they would be in the building for at least 50% of the time. Now, until we know why we're going to the hybrid model, we don't know what that's exactly going to look like. We would anticipate giving at least 24 hours notice for a hybrid model, up to 3 days notice for a hybrid model. But I do think it's important to understand that our first primary goal is to keep those K-4 kids in the building as long as possible, and also to have a 5-8 rotation and a 5-12 rotation of kids coming in the building and working with teachers and also doing some of the learning remotely. So if you have other questions about hybrid or remote plans, I ask you to call. Sometimes it's just easier to visit about those in person or on the phone because there's so many nuances to it. So you can always reach me by email or by phone, and we can go through that guidance in more detail. The other thing that I wanted to just talk about a little bit is all of the changes that we're seeing. We're seeing changes to our sports, we're seeing changes to our activities and our events, we're seeing changes to our school day in some cases. And I want you to know that while we understand that this is devastating for students, we understand that this is one of the reasons why some kids come to school, we also know that our primary focus is safety of kids and students. And so when we put in our new mask mandates, when we put in our new guidance for activities and sports, that's all done with the intent to keep our students and our staff safe. So if you have any questions about any of the changes that you're hearing about, anything that you're reading about, we ask that you call us. My number at the office is 641-765-4291, or you can email me at sdentlinger@roadrunnerpride.org. Thank you for your time.
Hi guys, I'm Brandy Ransom, the school nurse at Interstate 35. After watching the governor's press conference last night, I thought it was a good time to review some of our health and safety mitigations. Of course, we expect students to stay home when they're sick. Students and staff, stay home when you're sick. We know that COVID brings a new element of our illness policy and how people approach illness. Sometimes the symptoms are very simple, very mild, things that typically we would overlook, things that typically we would really not pay attention to. Many people are seeing mild cases, especially in our students. We're seeing mild symptoms, a cough, a runny nose. Not everyone runs a fever throughout the whole thing. Sometimes people don't ever run a fever. So really pay attention to new symptoms in the people in your household. Anything new, anything that hasn't been happening with them in the previous week or two, anything that's not their normal. Those are things that we'd like you to pay attention to. Those are good indicators sometimes of people being positive for COVID-19. I want to run through just the symptoms really quick. So new cough, shortness of breath or difficulty breathing, new loss of taste or smell are the high-risk symptoms. Fever, headache, muscle aches, body aches, fatigue, sore throat, runny nose, congestion, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea all can be indicators of, those are low-risk symptoms that can be indicators of COVID-19. We know this is a new way of doing things and maybe not typically how we would do them in the past if you have a sniffle or a sore throat, or but really truly we ask that you have a plan to keep your student home if they're not feeling well or if they're displaying any symptoms of COVID-19 or any symptoms that you are questioning. Please just err on the side of caution and keep them home and call us and we'll work through those symptoms. It's really important that we do our best to mitigate the spread. Just a few more things I want to remind people of. I know that you've heard these a lot over the last several months, but always just a good reminder to practice good hand washing, cover your cough, do your best at social distancing, greater than 6 feet apart when you can be, wear a mask. When you're in the building, definitely when you're out in public as much as you can, and limit the number of people at gatherings. These are the things that it's going to take to limit the spread. If you have any questions, concerns, things you want to talk through, please reach out to us here at the school. You can reach me. My phone number at the school is 641-765-5203. You can call the office at any time, either the high school or elementary, and they'll get you in touch with me. You can email me, bransom@roadrunnerpride.org, and I will respond to you as quickly as possible. If you have questions at any time, please reach out and we'll work through the details.
Hello everyone, Keegan Smith, Activities Director at I-35. Just wanted to touch base on some of the updated guidance as far as winter sports goes and winter activities. All high school sports and activities are subject to increased regulations until further notice. The following guidelines were adopted by the West Central Activities Conference and will be in effect at all I-35 activities. All WCA schools will be permitting 2 guests per participant. There will be a list at each game, home and away, that will have the 2 participants. That those 2 guests that are allowed include adults and children as well, so that those 2 spectators include students and adults. Gyms will be cleared after each level of competition. So, for example, after the JV game, the gym will be cleared, and if you're not on the list for the varsity game, then you'll be asked to leave, and you won't be permitted to attend that game unless you are on that list as well if your participant plays JV as well as varsity. So face coverings will be required at all events, and social distancing will be required. That will be designated by tape at each individual school. There will be concession stands will vary from school to school, but at Interstate 35, concessions we will not have concessions for the time being. And we just ask that everybody accept personal responsibilities for following public health guidelines, follow any posted signage, be patient and use common sense, and stay home if you are showing any symptoms of COVID-19. I also want to touch base on any outside usage of our facilities. So for the time being, any youth programs or any outside groups we're not going to allow to use our facilities for the time being until further notice. So with the governor's guidance last night, junior high sports will be shut down for the time being until further notice, and that includes practices and competitions as well.
I want to take a moment and talk about some expectations for mask wearing within the classroom, within the various areas of the school. First off, the proper mask wearing technique will ask students to have their mask over their nose and covering their mouth. Whether that's the use of a gaiter or the use of a mask, that's up to the student at this point, but we do want to make sure that the mask is covering the nose and the mouth while they are in the building. Just a few of the notes as far as expectations. Anytime a student is in the building, masks are required by all students, staff, and any visitors that we may have on an occasion in the building. While students are in places such as our commons, library, hallways, study hall rooms, or any other large gathering areas, masks will be required. While students are in the classrooms, masks are required at all times. There will be an identified mask break location in the classrooms that if a student needs to take a break, they are welcome to go to that area. Otherwise, regardless of proximity to anybody else in the classroom, students will be expected to wear masks. If a student is non-compliant with their mask wearing, they will be reminded, as they are with any other expectation. If they are, again, non-compliant with that reminder, they will be sent to the office and assigned a 60-minute detention for non-compliance with expectation. That's common practice anytime a student is removed from class. If a student is a repeat offender in mask compliance, that student will then be, again, reminded. They will be sent to the office afterwards, and they will be assigned to go remote learning for 2 weeks based on their second non-compliance with mask expectations. We're hopeful that with all of the communication that takes place, all of the other mitigation measures that we have in classrooms, we don't get to that option, but do understand that if your student is non-compliant in their mask wearing, that is the expectation. So I just want to recap. If a student is non-compliant with their mask, they will be reminded. If they are sent or non-compliant again, they will be sent to the office for the first time and assigned their discipline for that. If it happens a second time, they will be sent to the office and then they will be expected to remote learn for a 2-week span, at which time we would then revisit those expectations with the student as they're coming back into the district. As with all of this, communication will be critical from our end as well. So if a student is referred to the office, you will be notified. If a student is an inconsistent masker, one of the expectations we have for our teachers is that the classrooms will be kind of separated from consistent and inconsistent. So one side consistent, one side inconsistent. If your student is an inconsistent masker, we will be communicating that home. So we will make sure that we hold that up on our end. We would appreciate the support on your end to do our best to keep all of our students and staff safe here in the district.